Today I'm going to show you how to make a piñata out of grocery bags. First, I start with some old newspapers and cut them up into thin strips, maybe about an inch or two wide. And then a cup of flour, a cup of water, a teaspoon of salt. I added a little bit more water to make it more of the consistency of glue. I blew up a balloon. I take my strips of newspaper, dip it in the flour and water solution, and start applying in a random pattern to the balloon. As you can see, I also used a bowl to kind of support the balloon so it doesn't roll around. And yes, this is paper mache. This is one form of paper mache. It's actually really fun to do. And then I took it outside and I hung it to dry. In this Texas heat, it didn't take long at all. It was dry in a couple of hours. It might take longer wherever you live. And then I gathered up all the beer and soda boxes I could find, and I made cones from the boxes. Now, these are quarter circle pieces that have a 13-inch radius. They don't have to be perfect because these are going to get completely covered up. I'm using some really good brown sticky paper tape to hold these. You could probably use packing tape, but the quarter circle makes a really nice cone shape. And then I went ahead and painted the balloon just in case any pieces were to show from the outside once I was done. And then I cut my plastic grocery bags. Now, these are really pretty blue bags. You might have different colored bags in your region. It's a good idea to start collecting now if you want to make one of these. I cut 3 strips off of the longest sections of the bags, which included the handles, and braided them together to make support for my cones. Now here you can see that I'm sticking the cones on, and the way I do that is I take those braids that I made already, I put a piece of tape at the end to kind of create a really firm, pointy piece. And then I gauge where I want the cone to go, poke a hole there. I put a piece of tape on the inside to give it some more structure on the other side of that hole I poked. And then I thread those braided bits with a knot at the end through that hole. And then I take my awl, you could use a screwdriver too, to create a structure at the tip. And I'm sorry I got this part cut off of the video here, but I'm threading that through the tip of my cone, the braided piece that is, and then I'm taping it on. Now these, I did 10, this is a 10-point star design. So I have my 10 cones all taped on. I added some extra support tape, and then I painted the whole thing blue. And then here I cut the top and the bottom off of a bag, and from there I cut 5 pieces that are about 2.5 to 3 inches wide each, and this is what I'm going to use to make the fringe to cover the entire piñata. So I cut little slices about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch in width, leaving one edge uncut. And then it's a little bit tricky to pull these apart, but just go slow, make sure that you don't tear it anywhere. And then I cut it so that it could be one long strip. At the ends of each point, I folded over the bit of braid that was sticking out to create a loop, and I taped that down, and that'll be a good place to thread through some tassels when I'm done. And then I take the fringe that I created, and with little pieces of tape, I just start going around and around and around and let the fringe overlap itself by the majority of the width of the fringe, so that really you're only setting off the fringe by about 1/4 to half an inch each time you go around. And I just cut fringe, I cut bags and cut fringe as I went so that I didn't cut more than I needed. On the cones that were facing down, I started at the tip and worked my way back towards the center of the piñata. On the cones that are facing more in the upward direction, I started at the center and worked my way out towards the tip. That way all the fringe is sort of aiming the same direction from top to bottom, which is down, like the fringe is hanging down. So I just keep going, taping as I go, little pieces of tape. Keep on going around and around and around. I lost track of how many bags I was using, but it was quite a few. I'm guessing about 30 or so. And then when I get towards the tip, I cut some long strips from the bag going the long direction, like from top to bottom of the bag, and then I use those, and those are about 1/2 inch wide. I use those to thread through the loop that I created at the tip of the cone with the braid that is helping to support the cone. And then after that, I keep going with my fringe, and I kind of conceal the tip of where the fringe, where the tassel is connected. And I use a little bit of double-sided tape there so no tape shows. For the rest of the piñata, I use regular tape. It's just at the tips where I use the double-sided tape. Now, I forgot to mention that I did leave a hole where the balloon was tied. That's the hole that you can put the candy and treats into. And on this one, I made a braid that doubles over, so it creates a loop. And I did not tape that one down, so that way you can lift it up and put the candy inside. And here is the finished result. It's got about a 36-inch reach and 10 points altogether, and a solid blue design. Of course, if you try this, you can do all the different colors that you can find on grocery bags, and I think it will turn out beautifully.